Hello, and welcome to Hold This Thought, a podcast where I invite you to hold on to thoughts that you might not have had before. Each week, I sit across from a new guest, and we talk life, ideas, and ponder the questions that make us think twice. I hope you enjoy the show. I gotta know, we did one shoot together, which was really fun, as extras on this commercial in this doctor's office wearing lab coats and patient garbs and going to MRI machines to be rich and famous actors with 0 lines and 0.5 seconds on camera. But you pursued that in a more intentional way than I did. How many sets have you been on as an actor?
I really can't say. It'd be more than, probably more, well, no more than 10, but probably less than 20. So not that much, but, enough it made it fun. It was more of a kind of a hobby for me for those couple years.
Yeah. What about being on set did you find appealing?
To be honest with you, ever since I was real little, and it just carried into my adulthood, I've just always loved to pretend to be something else, or to do something outside of the normal every day. So that's kind of was my draw to that. I could pretend to be someone I wasn't, and then when I'm done, I can go back to myself. That really appealed to me.
Yeah,
that part of it.
What was your favorite role in your acting career, and your least favorite role? And that could be the role itself or the experience surrounding the role with the cast and crew and the situation. Yeah.
Well, as far as roles, there were always an extra role, but there were a couple that I got chosen to have more of a, a little more camera time with one of the stars or whatever. And that was always fun because you got a little more attention. It was just a little more fun to be picked out of the group too, to participate. Just like when you're in school, you get picked to whatever in sports, whatever. It's always a good thing. But probably my favorite set, it was a movie called In Dubious Battle. Don't think it did too great at the box office, but it was James Franco directed and starred in that movie. He was fun to work with. He and I did just some. I can't remember what it's called now. We didn't really have a script. We just went off each other.
Ad-lib.
Ad-lib. Yeah, we ad-libbed for 10 or 15 minutes. It was great. I don't know how much of it made the movie, but it was fun. But my favorite part of everything, as far as the acting hobby I had, was that same movie. Robert Duvall was on there. We were kind of just hanging out, waiting on them to move cameras around and stuff, and he's sitting in a 1930s car, and I'm at the passenger side, and we strike up a conversation because he's just sitting in there by himself, and I'm standing just right outside the door. We strike up a conversation, and he just all of a sudden, hey, get in here. They're going to be a while. Come sit with me, and let's talk. And it was really neat. He was a super nice guy. That's really touched me when he passed away the other day, because I did have that special. I felt like a special moment with him. I'm sure he didn't remember me, but he was a super, super nice guy. He said, hey, get in. I was calling him Mr. Duvall and this. And he said, no, he said, call me Bobby. He said, I don't go for that Mr. Duvall stuff. And so that was fun. We talked about his farm up in Virginia. We talked about a lot of his past movies that he had been in. And, I didn't want to sound like was blowing smoke, because I didn't want to. He knows how good he is. I didn't have to sit there and continually tell him. So, But we had a good conversation. It was just a couple guys sitting in the back of an old car talking while things are going on around us, but they weren't ready for us yet, so we could just sit there and talk, and I'll remember that for the rest of my life. It was awesome.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah, I wish I could have got a selfie with him, but they didn't allow us to have cameras on set. So
yeah, that makes sense. You hear so much about stuff leaking about the script or the outcome of the movie, storyline. Yeah, so I could. Yeah, they check the phones at the door.
Oh yeah,
yeah, that makes perfect sense.
But that was one of my favorite ones.
On the flip side of that, what was an experience where you were like, this is horrible. I can't believe I took this gig. If I had known before signing up and saying yes to this acting spot or this role, I would have not done it. Mm-hmm. What was an experience like that?
Well, there was this one TV series. It's no longer on, but and off the top of my head, I can't remember the name of it right now, but I was picked to be an assistant manager to a baseball team, and the whole series, the whole show, pretty much took place in a baseball stadium and around that kind of atmosphere, and it was fun, but once I watched the show, I regretted even participating in that because of the language. Just that. I mean, I didn't have any bad language, but there was a lot of it in the show, and to just know that, my face was in there for a few seconds or whatever, didn't feel good.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much been the worst one. All the others they've all been fun. Some more challenging than others, with weather. The one I was talking about with James Franco, it was in March. We were filming in Bostwick, Georgia, and that year it was really cold for the first part of the week and rainy, and we were all out there just soaking wet, for a couple days in a row, and then by the end of the shoot in Bostwick, it turned off pretty, so it ended real nice. But that was a challenge because it was freezing. It was hard to not let the camera see your teeth chattering and stuff, So, but that one was fun too. Selena Gomez was there. I stood right beside her in a couple shots when we were doing things, and I'm trying to think of some of the other actors that were there. I can't think of them right off the top of my head, but
and that was the movie where you filmed that 15-minute ad lib with James Franco, correct?
Yeah.
What was that like, having that back and forth with him on camera?
It was great. I mean,
what was the scene like? Can you paint the picture for me?
Yeah, we're sitting under a pavilion, and there's some other guys around us, and he had chosen me to kind of just be opposite of him, and he's sitting up on a picnic table with his feet on the seat, and I'm sitting directly across from him, sitting on the seat. I'm leaning back against the picnic table, and we're just talking. Obviously, he led because he knew what he wanted to say and how he wanted to say it, and we obviously took a couple takes. He told a couple jokes, and we all knew when to laugh because they weren't all that great, but it was fun. But that was real fun. That was real fun to do that, and it kind of felt natural, But he was a pretty cool guy to hang out with. I'll tell something kind of funny. We were standing off to the side between takes on another, scene, and he was he needed to change his clothes, and he had me and two or three guys just kind of stand there and block while he had to change his clothes behind us there. And I'm like, somebody should get you a little room or something, but that was kind of funny. It just shows you he was just down to earth. But
he doesn't need a fancy trailer. He'll just change out in the wild.
That's what he did. Yeah,
2 or 3.
Yeah, well, several times I seen him walk off, and I knew he was going to, go to the bathroom or something. He'd come back, and we kept going. But because we were filming in a big field that was surrounded by woods, and obviously they didn't want to accidentally have a porta potty in one of the shots or something, so it was way away. And with him being the director, he couldn't get too far away. He had to stay, right there. So, but yeah, you realize they're just folks like us.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. I think we oftentimes put these actors and celebrities and business CEOs on these pedestals.
Absolutely.
And then you get up close to them, and they'll change, get naked right behind you if they need to.
And that's basically what he did. I mean, he didn't get naked, but he got down to his undies. But it was freezing. He said, "I don't have time to run up there." He said, "You guys just stand right there and block for me." I said, "Okay." I mean, at least he, was wanted somebody to block for him.
Some sort of decency.
Yeah, because there were some ladies on set and stuff, and but yeah, it was pretty neat.
Yeah. So you picked up this acting hobby when your construction business took a dip in the 2010s. What got you into construction? When did you start doing that? And what was that journey like for you?
I've actually built my first house while still in school. I was 17. Knew I wanted to do that for a career. My dad had been doing it for years, and so he helped me get started in it. But I actually got my first construction loan at 17.
Wow.
The Brand Banking Company in Lawrenceville. I mean, obviously my dad had to co-sign with me because they're not going to turn loose a 17-year-old, by myself. But my dad let me pretty much handle everything on my own, and that was the best way to learn. I mean, obviously he was there to help, and all the folks that worked for us knew him and knew me, and so it was fun. It was a pretty nice transition from being in school to being in the workforce, and enjoyed it.
So you built your first home. Did that lead you on a path of building neighborhoods, or did you go more the developer route of, from my understanding, there's two different, a lot of people don't know this. I just learned this last year. There's two different companies in most organizations, almost two different. It's a baton handoff. You have one company that will come in and clear the land, and then another company that will buy that cleared land that maybe already has the streets and the curbs and the sewers and the electrical run, and then the builder will come in afterwards. Which path did you choose? Did you do both?
Yeah, it was a natural progression. I built houses only for a few years. I'm trying to think I think around 1999, so 10 years later, been building exclusively until 99. My father and I decided we wanted to get into the developing side of it. So, for one, we could sell the lots to many of our builder friends. We could keep which lots we maybe wanted to build on ourselves. That way we could keep ourselves in inventory. So we set up a development company, and then we also had, a building company. And that went well for a while. There were several neighborhoods that we would develop, and then once it's complete, we would then sell the lots to our construction company. And then we would, build the houses.
Wow. And you did that from 1999 until when? When did that hit a turn or a...
Yeah, I tell people this. It felt like hitting a brick wall in 2007, in the beginning of 2007, when the housing market crashed. It was pretty much nationwide, but especially here in Georgia, it hit us hard because so much of our economy was linked to the construction industry. But yeah, that's when it pretty much come to a stop.
What was that like when you went from all systems go, you're building, you're developing these lots and these houses, to the fire hose gets shut off? What was that like? What did it look like practically, and then how did it feel internally as well when you have this business riding on your shoulders?
Yeah, it was a scary time. not just for myself, but for pretty much everybody I knew outside of my family, because everyone I knew was in the construction industry. All my relatives, you'd come to one of our job sites, and more than half of the folks working on that house, their last name would be Tullis, whether it be a framer or a siding guy or a roofer. And so, yeah, there was a lot of stress there, not just for our own livelihood, but for all those folks. And it was literally like just hitting a brick wall. Someone just reached up and turned the switch off. I'll tell you this, I had over $20 million in contracts sitting on my desk, and within 4 to 6 weeks, they were all gone. And when I say contracts, I had over 200 lots already sold to builder groups. I had 42 homes going at the time. And, we lost all of our contracts. Builders would call me. I'd probably get a phone call once every day or two from a builder saying, "Hey, Jeff, they've just shut off my line of credit. I can't buy those lots from you." And one guy in particular was very stressed, and I really felt bad for him, because he said, we've got multiple homes under contract, and the bank's just cut off our line of credit. We can't finish the home, so we're afraid the purchasers are going to sue us for not being able to finish their home, and then the banks would eventually come after them as well for deficiencies on the loan, and so yeah, it was a bad time.
So it almost seems like it put the builders in a position where they were the scapegoat.
Yeah.
From the bank's perspective, from the buyers at the end of the contracts, they were the ones who got pushed to the chopping block.
Absolutely. That's, it's, and I seen it then, and I see it even more now, was that because it all happened in such quick succession, it was like it was orchestrated. And especially your bigger banks, your SunTrust, which is no longer around, they've merged with somebody, but they didn't want to work with anyone. We had never missed any interest payments the whole time our company was operating, paid like clockwork. But they eventually cut off our lines of credit also, and we had multiple developments going, and we couldn't finish them. We held on for about 18 months, continuing to pay our interest, and then they finally we're just going to have to take them back, because basically we'd run out of money. But back up, prior to that, because we just lost all of our contracts within such a short period of time, all these banks it was almost like they wanted all this junk on their books. And later I found out that the more junk they had on their books, the larger the bailout was they'd get from the government. And so that really upset me, made me mad that's how it worked, because in my point of view, the government could have taken that money and just paid off all these loans. The bank would have then been made whole, and we'd have been made whole, and then we could have all just parted ways until things straightened out. But it didn't work that way. We all got caught holding the bag with no bailout, and all these banks got the bailout. But then they would still want to. We had one bank in particular. They foreclosed on a piece of property, and then they try to sue us for a deficiency based on a faulty appraisal that they got. Because we had to, once we went to court, we brought our own appraisal showing that the property actually appraised for more than what we owed on it, but yet they were trying to sue us for a deficiency, saying the property was worth less than what we owed on it. But anyway, that was the only bank that took us to court, and we won that case. So that was just the type of stuff that was going on during that season. And I know we weren't an isolated case. It was happening to a lot of builders and developers I know.
Yeah, I have a friend. He taught me a new term I didn't know last year, and that's pipe farm. And that's what they, in the building world, you would call all these neighborhoods that were left vacant for 4 or 5 years, where a developer like yourself would have started this building process with the lands cleared, roads are in, sewers in, curbs installed, maybe electrical's in too, and you got the pipes coming out of the ground. But then the pipes that normally get concrete laid over and a house built within a couple months got put in a position where they're sitting empty for
sometimes years.
And it turns into a graveyard of pipes pretty quick.
Yeah.
And I can't.
That was another thing that I didn't like. You know, the bank had already gotten their bailout money, but then the properties were left in their portfolio. So they eventually started selling off these pipe farms, these lots, these neighborhoods, these houses for basically for pennies on the dollar. But they were not willing to work with us. It's because they knew they were going to get bailout. Once they got it, then they knew, I don't know if it was after a certain amount of time or what, but then they knew they'd have the asset, the land, and then they sold it off. But because of the environment, they had to sell it for pennies on a dollar because no one knew when it was going to come back. There's a subdivision that I developed myself. The lots we sold many of those lots for $85,000 a piece back in 2004, something like that. And after the economy crashed, after the bank took the remaining lots back, and then, like you were saying, after a year or two, the banks were selling the remaining lots for like $8,000 a piece. And folks that still had cash at the time would just swoop in and buy them up. But after the banks had already gotten bailed out.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it seems like
and I'm sure I don't know half of what went on. I know what I know based on conversations with folks that were in the know. So.
Yeah. But your case, like you said, is probably not isolated. It probably impacted people.
No, it was all over the country.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was back, I remember looking at a house one time. Normally it would have been a $200,000 house, and it sold for like $50,000. It was a nice house.
Wow.
It just shows you what happened during that season there.
Do you think another recession like that is on the horizon based on what you saw in 2004 and 2005 and 2006? Do you see a similar climate? And I know we're very localized to the metro Atlanta market in our visibility as far as day to day, but do you see something like that on the horizon for us, or do you think that
I don't see anything to that extreme, and I do believe we've been in somewhat of a correction in the housing market in Atlanta, or basically Georgia, but mainly the Atlanta area, for the last several months. With that being said, I've not seen housing prices go down much. Maybe a 5% drop or something. But the reason that is we are in a pretty unique situation in Georgia now that we were not in back then. Now, thankfully, we're having more folks move in than we are having move out. And anytime you have a surplus of buyers coming in versus moving out of the state, it helps keep the prices up, and it helps keep the construction industry going because it's an engine that needs to be fed. Yeah,
that's an interesting. I hadn't thought of it that way. For those who go to college and you take an economics class, you learn about supply and demand, and when the supply goes up, the demand goes down, and then when the demand goes up, the supply goes down, and that also has an association with cost to it as well. And you give a great example of a real world application of that with when you have more people move in, it'll keep the prices at a place where the builders can still make money off what they're building with materials and paying for labor and making a profit.
That's right.
Pivoting into the podcast world, before the show, I was asking you which podcast you listen to, what you like, and you brought up Charlie Kirk, and I wanted to give you a chance to talk about that. What about his show stood out to you, and how has it changed since he passed away?
I really liked the Charlie Kirk show. He was young, extremely smart. And I think that's what attracted me to him. He without hesitation, he could rattle off stats. He could rattle off scripture. And I think that's what attracted me to his show. And he was seemed like a really great guy, So, yeah, I enjoyed watching his podcast probably for not a long time, but probably a year or so leading up to that day in Utah where he was assassinated. That day kind of hit me hard. I didn't watch it live, but within a few minutes, everyone was watching it, and it was like, it was just horrific. What happened to him and his family and his organization, and all those like me that really looked up to him, and I knew, probably like so many, that he would make a great president one day, and I was ready to sit back and watch him evolve into that, grow into that position, because it was coming.
You bring up a good point that he was on this trajectory.
Absolutely.
To be something more than a debate facilitator at college campuses.
Yeah, or a debate guru.
Yeah.
He was really good at it. Yeah.
Considering that angle, there's a lot of sentiment online that it wasn't random, that it was there's a lot of different theories. Some say it's an inside job from someone on his own team. Mm-hmm. Others say it was an assassination attempt from an opposing political or religious party. What are your thoughts on that? Have you
Usually I have quite a lot of input when it comes to some conspiracies. What we've been told for the last several years where conspiracies have come true. So I'm not saying it's not this or it's not that, but in this particular case, I think it is. This young man was just obviously, something's just not right upstairs, I guess, for him to be able to do that. Obviously, it was a political type of motive as well. But yeah, I've heard stories, that it was people in his close inner circle. I've heard stories that it was backed by the Israelis and things like that. But I just can't. I've not seen enough evidence or to be able to grab on to any of that. I seen a podcast one time that had the head of Charlie Kirk's security detail, and I believe what he said. He said that because they went through that, they went through all these different things that are out there. As far as the host was asking him these questions, and he put my mind at ease that it was not an inside job. I do think it's funny though, because I know quite a bit about firearms, and I know that gun that he supposedly used could not be just broken down and put back together that quickly, without certain tools. And it was supposedly brought on campus in a backpack because it had broken down in two pieces. And then once he shot, then I don't know. You know, it's just a lot of weird stuff in that too. But I'm just leaving it up to the FBI and those folks to figure that out, because I know things get reported kind of not accurately a lot of times too, and then folks want to run with that. You know, unless you're on the inside or in the know, you're not going to know what's actually going on. You know, I think it's weird that supposedly he broke the gun back down, but then when they found the gun in the woods,
It was reassembled.
it was reassembled completely, you know, together.
There does seem to be some holes in that, some of the parts of the story.
Yeah, and you know, and I've watched the videos, and I'm a big hunter, and I know the power of a 30-06. I've shot multiple different targets before, live and inert, and I know what that gun is capable of.
Yeah.
And a human neck could not stop a hunting round. But now I have heard in the last few months that it was what they call a 30-06 accelerator, which is a smaller grain projectile. And is it possible that it could have went, you know, and hit his spine and just, I mean, it did destroy several vertebrae, they said. So I think it's possible. You know, a heavier grain bullet's going to have more kinetic energy. Smaller grain bullet has more speed, but it's not going to have the kinetic energy of a larger bullet. So a larger bullet, and, you know, I don't want to get graphic, but it would have probably almost severed his head, hitting him in the neck like that. So if it was the 30-06 that they say it would have had to been a small grain projectile.
Yeah.
And with that said, it would have had to been a particular type too that doesn't explode on impact, like a lot that folks use for varmint hunting and stuff. You know, they pretty much will explode on impact and makes a mess of whatever it hits. So
I saw a compelling case that builds an argument that there was something in his lapel mic that could have exploded into his neck. Mm-hmm. Have you seen that argument?
Yeah, but I've not dug into it much. Maybe I should, because I've heard that on a couple different channels. I don't, you know, in the beginning, in the first couple days, you know, people were even talking about, oh, he had on body armor and the bullet possibly hit and ricocheted up and whatever. And that turned out, you know, he didn't have on any body armor that I'm aware of. He may have had on a form-fitting type of body, not even body armor.
Like
but
Kevlar maybe?
Yeah, some type of Kevlar. But it more than likely, plates. Yeah, it wouldn't have stopped a high-power rifle like that anyway. It's designed for small 9mm, 22, 38, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But that's interesting. You know, I've heard stories. I've even seen some videos of it looks like a guy in the crowd holding something and doing something right at the same time that he's hit. And all I can say is I wouldn't put, nothing would surprise me. Because there have been patsies in the past that have been, you know, the blame put on them. And to this day, it's still taught that in history as fact. And I think there's been too much evidence over the years to prove that, hey, this one couldn't have done that alone, or this one didn't do it at all, or whatever. So this could be something, you know. And he could have been groomed, and they could have allowed him to get as far as he did, and he might not could have hit the broadside of a barn if he tried. But I did find out that he was a hunter. He has grown up hunting with his father, so I would assume he's a decent shot. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it would not have been that hard of a shot for someone that's adequate, you know, with a firearm. They wouldn't even have to be a professional in any stretch of the imagination. But But with that being said, if something ever were to come out, I probably wouldn't be surprised anymore.
Yeah.
You know,
as an avid gun owner, hunter, outdoorsman, really across the board, what would you say to someone who's like, hey, this whole Charlie Kirk situation's got me thinking about my own safety, protecting my family. I want to buy a gun. I want to buy my first gun. What gun would you recommend? Where does someone who's never owned a gun or never grown up doing firearms safety classes or hunting, where would they start?
I would ask them what purpose do you want the firearm to serve? I mean, obviously it's serving the purpose of protecting you and your family. Maybe I should reword that. What environment are you going to be having this gun? Is it strictly a home defense weapon? Or is it a gun you want to carry on your person? That would probably be a first question that the person needs to ask themselves. If it's strictly home defense, I'm a big fan of shotguns for home defense because you don't have to be a great shot. You just point that baby and shoot, you know, and birdshot's a good self-defense at close range. But it won't go through 4 and 5 walls and kill your child down the hallway.
Or your neighbors.
Or your neighbor.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know some guys that use AR-15, you know, 223 rounds, 5.56, and that thing can go through lots of barriers and before it stops. You know, they make other rounds for AR-15. I personally like the 300 blackout round because you can get some self-defense rounds in that 300 blackout that are designed to hopefully stop within 15, 16 inches, which is kind of the thickness of a body. So if you hit your target, hopefully it won't go through and kill your neighbor. But, you know, if you're obviously wanting something to protect your family while you guys are out, a handgun, but it needs to be something that you feel comfortable with. That's why it would be best to, you know, go to one of these gun shops around here and see what strikes your fancy and then handle them. And a lot of these gun shops have indoor ranges and they have gun rentals. So you can try out, you know, narrow it down to 5 or 6 or 10 that you like and then go rent them and shoot them. See which one you like better, but it has to be more than like. You have to be able to hit with it. I may love the look of this pistol, but I might not be able to hit what I'm aiming at with it. So that's more important than the looks, for sure.
Yeah, I grew up in a house with hunting rifles, but never any pistols or shotguns. There might have been one shotgun that rotated between relatives, but never any pistols. And so a few years back before the Charlie Kirk thing happened, I was getting married and I was like, okay, this is the time to start and, you know, time to be grown up, an American Second Amendment right believing grown up. Oh, yeah. And I started doing some research and I did exactly that. I went with my wife to a gun range that offered a very generous rental program. You pay $10 or $15 and they let you rent any number of guns you want, pistols, and you just pay for the ammunition that you shoot at the range.
Wow.
Here in town. And that experience helped me pick out a gun that not only felt good in my hand and my wife's hand, but we would practice at 5, 10, 15 yards, and we've got the targets. And hey, which gun can we shoot the most accurately at all these distances? Mm-hmm. We tried full-size pistols, compact pistols. Is subcompact even a class? I can't remember.
It is. Yep.
Yeah. And of course the subcompact ones or the compact ones, the small ones, they feel nice, but what people who maybe don't know, who've never been in the gun world is that there's so much more because there's less weight in the gun. That muzzle is going to pop up more. And so having accuracy on repetitious shots is going to be less than a full-size gun. So we actually bought the biggest gun we could find. I'm one of those people who researches something, buys it, and then I leave it where it's supposed to be, in the nightstand, and I forget what it's called. It's we were looking at the Israeli one, the Canik, and then we've got this one instead. If it comes to me, I'll say it. But we got this full-size pistol, and what was important was that my wife and I could both shoot it with the highest accuracy compared across 10 other guns in different class sizes.
Yeah, so if she's home by herself, something crazy happens,
I feel good that she's
confident that,
defend the house. And then, shotguns are like tattoos. You buy, guns are like tattoos. You buy one, and then you go to the next one. So then, a few months later, I get the AR-15. A few months, it was a year or so later, I got my shotgun. And then, for me, the way I viewed the whole gun journey was I wanted to have a firearm that I could use in every scenario possible. Now, there might be a better gun that does what this one can do, but I have a gun that can be used in every scenario. Of course, pistol and shotgun are good for close quarters, home defense. And then an AR-15, it's not a hunting rifle, but if the world goes down,
sideways,
I can hunt with an AR-15.
Absolutely.
Even though it's, maybe frowned upon in the hunting community today, I can survive.
Nice.
And
a lot of folks hunt with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can, you can use an AR-15. I was surprised to find that they can, with the right attachments and, the setup, they can maintain accuracy up to, and maybe even beyond 1,000 yards.
Yeah, way out there.
And
I know the Marines, they have to be able to shoot, I think, 500 meters with iron sights and hit the target.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's, with optics on that rifle, you could stretch that out there. Someone that knows what they're doing and, can dial it in, your windage, elevation, and all that. Yeah, they could hit beyond that. But 5.56, it's a good round for what it's intended, to shoot enemy at fairly close range. That's why you got your snipers with your 308s, your 300. I don't know if they use a 300 Win Mag or not, but there's a few rounds they use now. But back in the day, 308 was a pretty common round for snipers, stretching out there 1,000 yards. But now you've even got your 50 cals and stuff, for having to stretch way out there. But you're right; they can be effective way out.
Do you have a favorite gun?
Yeah, favorite pistol would have to be a Staccato. That's the brand. They're out of Texas. Staccato C2. I really like that. The reason I like it is it was a pistol that I've had. I don't have it any longer. It was a really expensive gun, and ended up selling it not too long ago. But best shooting gun I've ever owned as far as a pistol. I could hit great with it. Felt good in the hand. For carrying, a little bit on the heavy side, not bad. So it could be concealed pretty easy. But rifle, I don't know. Like I said, I'm a big hunter, so I've got several hunting rifles. I've got a Tikka, got a Browning, BAR, and a few others. But and I don't necessarily have a favorite when it comes to that. I did have one time a SIG Spear, which is had a foldable stock on it, short barrel, like a 10.5-inch barrel, so it would literally fit in a backpack, and it was in 300 blackout, which I'm partial to because it's a 30 cal bullet. I just like the way it shoots. I've taken deer with it, and so it's plenty powerful enough. But yeah, that was probably one of my most favorite guns of all time that I've had was that Sig Spear. Real good gun. I'd literally, because I'm on the safety team at church, and I'd literally would put it in my backpack, and I'd leave it in my vehicle, but it was there if something were to ever happen bad that I had to get to it. Yeah, that'd probably be my favorite.
That's a good segue into the need for safety teams in churches in our world today. I mean, you go back even 20 years ago or 30 years ago, and the thought of having an armed security team at your church was like, wait, why?
Yeah.
The church we don't go to the same church, but the church that I go to, we have a retired police chief who runs our security team. Great guy. And they run a 4, 5, 6, 7-person team of, most of them are covert. You don't even know they're on the security team unless, you've been there a while and you could spot the earpiece.
Mm-hmm.
But they have this incredible system. There's always someone patrolling the parking lot. There's always someone posted in the lobby watching the only accessible entrance to visitors or people who don't have, codes to the back doors and stuff. They have people positioned in the service. I'm sure probably your church has a lot of the same stuff. And then they rotate throughout the service to get fresh eyes on the scene. And so they all rotate positions, and they have someone who patrols to the kids ministry area and back. And it's like,
everything so far you're saying sounds right on.
Yeah. It's, and I'm probably missing pieces. There's probably some other extra stuff. I've only seen it from the outside looking, and I haven't been on it, but it's, the fact that we have to do that is what's, that wasn't, that probably wasn't the way
sad.
It was for you growing up. You didn't have
no, absolutely
at that
not.
level.
No, the first time that I ever encountered a security team was when my wife and I went to church up in Gainesville at a church with a very well-known pastor, and that was back in. It was around 2005, 2006 when we went up there, and they had I could tell they had a really good security team. His large church, he's on TV, so he's probably getting all kind of hate, all kind of threats. So it was a necessity for them. You can't just blow off threats. You have to take them at face value and take precautions. So, but yeah, they had a great setup up there. But prior to that, prior to, say, 2006, I've never encountered a safety team anywhere. Now, with that being said, there could have been a deacon somewhere that had a 38 in his back pocket or something, or hopefully it was in a holster. But, prior to that, I don't recall ever seeing anybody or any security teams. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you think about these events that happen every year or two where these churches and synagogues are victimized by a radical that comes in with a gun. And a lot of times it's these churches that are 100-member churches, they're smaller, 200-member churches, they're smaller, and they have someone that just goes rampant in there, and it's terribly sad.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate that we've had to take these measures. And
I think sometimes that is random, but I think more often than not, they have probably been cased. I think a lot of times the guy that's thinking about doing that, he's going to find a target that suits his needs or desires. And that's why sometimes I think it is good if you've got a church that may be an off-duty or officer that's working part-time there on a Sunday. So he's in uniform, his car's parked up front. I think that could be a good deterrent, because you could have someone that's casing your place, and if he sees that, he may I'm going to go on down the road. Prime example, the church shooting out in Texas a couple years ago, where the guy came in wearing a trench coat, and it was in the middle of the summer. That's like red flag number one. Red flag number two, that they admitted to, as far as the safety team admitted to, they knew he had on a fake beard and a wig. Okay, that's red flag number 2. Why is he even coming in the church with all that garb on, you know? I think all of their safety team was concealed carry, which means, you know, plain clothes, undercover. Because he came in, because I read the report, and he came in and spent 20, 30 minutes inside prior to service starting before he decided to get up and walk back to his car. All right, that's red flag number 3. He's come in, now he's going back to his car. Red flag number 4 is all of a sudden he's coming back in. So he's went to his car and got something, and he's coming back in. And then that's basically when the, you know, shooting started. Once he got down front and he confronted someone, not sure if he knew that guy was armed or not, but in the video you can see that gentleman reaching for his gun, which was in the small of his back, which in a self-defense situation is not a good place to have a gun. I wear it 3 o'clock or around. Never, or possibly 4 o'clock. I would never go to 5 or 6 o'clock position because it's just harder to get to. And unfortunately, that gentleman was shot by that guy. He had a shotgun. I think I can't remember how many lost their life that day. It was a couple, I think. And then the head of security actually took him out as he was transitioning from these folks he had just shot. Now he's walking towards the stage, I would assume, to take out the pastor. And at this point, the pastor's already hit the floor and basically a sitting duck. And if the head of security had not taken him out when he did, it could have ended up being a lot worse. But you know, and I don't want to throw them under the bus, but you know, there were a lot of red flags, and I've taught the folks, because I was head of security over at our old church. And our current church, I was head of security for a while, but then I stepped down from being head, and someone else is head now. But you know, while I was head of security, we try to use these things that happened in the past as learning opportunities. And so, you know, and we even incorporate our ushers and our greeters in a lot of our meetings and say, hey, if you see someone come in you don't know, that's fine. I mean, we're open doors. We want someone to come in, receive the Lord, and hopefully leave different than they came. But we kind of keep an eye on them, especially if they're by themselves. Doesn't have to be, but more than likely, someone coming in with his family and his kids, usually don't have to worry about them. But yeah, watch them, and if they go back to their car and then come back in, let us know so we can keep an eye on them. Because what did they do? Maybe they just went out and took a drink of water and come back in, whatever.
Or maybe they scouted out the environment to see if, hey, I'm going to go through with this attack.
Yeah.
And then they went to get there.
Just like what happened in Texas. That guy came in, and I think he was scouting the place out. He didn't see anyone armed because they were all undercover, whatever you want to call it. They're plain clothes. And he said, okay, I'm going to do it. And he went out to his car, got his gun, brought it back in under his trench coat that he shouldn't have had on anyway because it was 90 degrees. And it went south quick, you know, so.
I want to touch on your point about the head of security of that church in Texas taking out that shooter. There are people who would argue that gun control would prevent that situation from happening. However, criminals are always going to find a way to arm themselves. I watched an interview the other day. I can't remember his name.
Yeah, they're currently finding ways to arm themselves. I mean, most of them are already a felon, so they shouldn't have a firearm to begin with, but it's, you know, the proof is in the pudding. They don't follow the laws. Yeah.
I watched an interview the other day. There was this crime boss from the mafia who had been sold out, went to jail, and now he's in his 60s, 70s. He was given an interview. He's already been made. He's already out in witness protection or something like that. And he's talking about his life in the mafia. And one of the things he said is like, you think I can't get a gun? I can always get access to a gun. And this is a white person in the Italian mafia. Mm-hmm. And the reason I mention that is it's not limited to race. A lot of times,
that's right.
In this conversation, the race conversation gets attached to it. Mm-hmm. And it has nothing to do with race. It has to do with the motive, motive of the heart. What is the criminal behind, the criminal that lives inside of the human in that moment? What is their motive? Is it to harm people? They're going to find access to a weapon. Mm-hmm. Is it to protect people? Well, then they're going to arm themselves and protect people, like the head of security at that church, and like your security team does, and the security team at my church does. And it's, to bring it full circle, it's sad that we have to have such extensive security measures in place, but without them, you would leave every church, every mosque, every synagogue in the nation susceptible to
carnage. And we've got to keep them guessing, and like I said, I'm all for, if you've got an off-duty officer that's in a uniform and he's up front in the lobby, whatever, because, Lord only knows how many times someone's possibly came in to, even because we went to church together before, previous church, and how many times someone's possibly came in, seen that we have a deterrent there, and they left, never to be seen again by us. So it's definitely a good thing to have if you can. I know a lot of folks might be uncomfortable with it, but hey, it's a police officer. You're going to see them every day out in the real world anyway. So
So gun ownership, as you mentioned before the show, is really one piece of the puzzle for you when it comes to the outdoor lifestyle as a whole. Mm-hmm. You had mentioned your love for trout fishing, for camping. Mm-hmm. Tell me about trout fishing. I've never been, and I see the smile forming on your face even as I mention it. Yeah. For me to just say the word trout fishing and you to light up like that, there has to be something special about it. Oh
yeah, it brings back fond memories of my childhood. My father never was much of a fisherman. He tried, but to no avail. I had a good friend of mine growing up. His dad kind of brought me in, almost like I was his second son, and took me hunting, took me fishing, taught me how to trout fish, and it was just a great experience. But I think part of why I love it now was that it reminds me of my childhood and those good days and those good times, and now I'm able to share that with my kids. And so, I think that's why it holds a special place in my heart, is those very reasons. It's not as much about the catching as it is spending time with the family, because I couldn't tell you when or where I've caught my biggest trout or how many trout I've caught at times or whatever, but I do remember how he made me feel and how the fishing made me feel, and I still get that feeling today, even when I think back and reminisce of those days, So it's a great sport, if you want to call it that, but I think it's a way of life, because I don't really ever want to call something where you're taking a life, whether it be a deer or a fish or whatever, a sport. I know a lot of folks do call it that, and I'm not going to say anything bad about them doing that, but me personally, anytime you're taking a life, a sport's football, a sport's baseball, hunting is like a way of life.
You're harvesting something.
Absolutely. So I'm kind of on that side of it, and I'm not. Yeah, I enjoy getting a big buck, but I'm not out there like I don't know how to say it, but I'm
for
not
for the thrill of killing something.
Yeah, I'm not out there for the thrill of killing something. I've gotten over that a long time ago, because I know back when I first started hunting, I mean, I was hunting with my dad when I was 5 years old. My dad was a much better hunter than he was a fisherman. So, but I killed my first deer at 13, and that really lit a fire, in my heart for that. But for a while there, through my teenage years, I feel like it was more about the killing than it was the harvesting or the whatever, because I didn't necessarily have a family to provide for. I just wanted to get out there and shoot something, The old saying, if it's brown, it's down, that's still a pretty popular saying. But I don't necessarily regret anything, because I took everything legal. I didn't just go out and blast a whole field full of deer for kicks. But now it's more about the experience. It's more about spending time with family. And we do enjoy the meat. So, yeah.
What's your favorite type of hunting? Is it always whitetail deer? Do you like to dove hunt, pheasant hunt? Not peasant.
Yeah,
pheasant.
Back in the day, like I said, starting around 13 when I got my first deer, hands down it would be deer hunting. As I've gotten older, my sons enjoy quail hunting quite a bit, and we've done some of that in the last few years. We've had some bird dogs, and we've had a lot of fun bird hunting, because it's a different style of hunting for sure. You're not having to go sit motionless or whatever and super quiet. You're out, you're walking, you're enjoying watching the dogs. You're watching them flush the birds. You're able to have conversation. You're able to strategize. You get the bird on point, and you're like, hey, go around that way just a little bit, and I'll go here, and then we'll flush the bird. It's fun. It's more interactive.
Yeah.
With multiple people.
I went deer hunting with my dad, grandpa, some family members when I was a kid. Never shot anything, and I sat in a stand probably 15 times. Like a lot of reps.
Well, yeah, at least you put in the time.
A lot of reps. Yeah. And so therefore, it's like going out fishing and not catching anything. Mm-hmm. If you don't get that harvest, you're probably not going to develop a passion for it, which is what happened with me. I didn't develop a passion for it. Mm-hmm. But I just remember, and for some people they love this, but for me, maybe it's ADHD or something, sitting in the stand that you get into at 5 a.m. and sit there till 9 was like, why are we doing this? What's the point?
Yeah.
And this is the 13th time I've done this. And I think I saw deer one time, 200 yards, shot at it at 12, 13, missed.
Yeah.
And I think my dad gave up after that point. He's like, okay, maybe we're not the hunting family.
Yeah.
We tried it.
Is, different strokes for different folks.
Yeah.
And some folks stick with it for years. I've known folks that, I don't know, they've hunted 6 or 8 years before they got their first deer. And they would be in a hunting club with me, and they would be there at the club every weekend, and they would go out to the stands. And so I knew they put in a lot of time. But they would see some deer. But back in the day, you had days where does were legal and bucks only and things like that. And they'd go out and they'd see does all day long, but does weren't legal. And so it's like, darn. And then the days that the does would be legal, they wouldn't see anything. So it was just by chance.
It's like the deer learned the schedule that the government set up, and they were like, they were collaborating in their little nest.
They definitely can pattern us hunters. That's for sure. They learn the sound of four-wheelers and things like that. I know this for a fact. I've been in a deer stand before and hear a four-wheeler on an adjacent piece of property, and he'd still be a good far piece off, and deer would come flooding out of their property and come running right by me. Now, did something else spook them and send them my way? I'm leaning towards it was that guy's four-wheeler he just cranked up. He basically drove his four-wheeler right up to his stand and then hunted and then wondered why he didn't see anything. And then when he got back on his four-wheeler and drove off, the deer come running over by me. I'm all for using four-wheelers. They're great. They help you keep from breaking your back when you drag one out. But I do think it's smart to probably park it a little ways from your stand and walk in as quietly as possible. But
speaking of four-wheelers, I learned this recently. Apparently, four-wheeler is a naming convention for that device in a certain part of the country. I have a friend who hails from Pennsylvania, and
call them a quad or something.
Calls them a quad, and I'm like, "What's a quad?" For the longest time,
same thing.
It's the same thing. But for 3 or 4 mentions, I'm like, "What is a quad? Is it like a side by side? Like, what are you talking about? What is this?"
Yeah.
And it's interesting. And four-wheeler is of course an example of all sorts of words.
Back in the day, that's pretty much all we had access to. But now you've got these side-by-sides. Matter of fact, I've got a side-by-side, and it's the best tool I've ever had there around our property. And but one thing I wanted to touch on, my oldest son, I started him out hunting pretty young. And at the time, I was pretty young, too. He's 30 now. So this was back when he was between 5 and 10 years old. We'd go hunting. And I regret it now because I treated him unfairly because he was young. I should not have tried to make him sit still for so long. I should not have tried to make him sit quiet for so long. Because he was great for a few minutes, maybe even up to an hour. But then he would be ready to go. He'd be fidgety, and I would get on to him. And so I'm so thankful, because he's my hunting buddy to this day. I'm so thankful I didn't turn him away from it, because of getting on to him. But he's stuck with it, and he's grown to love it. I should have, this is an older man looking back at my younger self. I should have said, all right, bud, because there's no deer in those woods worth turning him away from the sport. And I should have at that time, hey, bud, when you're ready, we'll get up and we'll go walking around. We'll go, we'll go over here and look at some rocks. We'll go walk in the creek, whatever you want to do. But no, I was so used to how I had hunted that I just expected more of him than I should have expected of him. Not his fault at all. He was a young boy with energy that did not need to be sitting in a ground blind or whatever for hours on top of hours with me getting on to him, and then made him feel bad. And so I thank God that he has stuck with it. And as I said, he's my hunting buddy to this day. So, but if there's one word of advice I could give to young hunters out there that have kids coming up, it's not that big a deal, and it's not that important. They're more important than anything in those woods. And when they're ready to get up and go for a walk or throw a rock in the creek, let them do it, and they'll keep coming back, and then they'll eventually grow into that hunter that I tried making him be when he was so young, and it just wasn't natural. So
that's a great little addition. Have you ever told your son that?
I have, yeah.
Yeah.
We talked about that not too long ago, that I had, I had a regret of how I'm sure made him feel, and the anxiety it probably caused him, and I should not have done that. It wasn't worth it. Nothing in those woods is worth that.
Speaking of your son, are any of your kids married? Any grandkids?
Yeah, I've got 5 kids, 3 boys and 2 girls. My oldest daughter is married with 2 girls.
Wow.
And 1 girl on the way. And the girl on the way is due in May. So we'll have 3 granddaughters come May.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Are those granddaughters going to be in the deer stand by age 5?
If they want to, they can.
With Grandpa?
Yeah. If they want to, they're as welcome to come right along as any grandson. I'm not going to have it, gender specific for sure. If they want to come, they can come. Yeah.
Does your daughter like to, does she have an affinity for the outdoors?
She loves to camp. We've camped ever since our kids were born, so they grew up loving to camp and enjoying camping. I think my girls, they like to fish sometimes too. Fish have to be biting though. You can't, same way with my wife. She's not going to fish if the fish aren't biting.
I thought you were going somewhere else when you started that sentence. Yeah, fish have to be biting.
They have to be biting, and I don't blame them. It gets boring, sometimes. But the older I get, I'm like, I enjoy boring now. I can go sit in a boat for hours without getting a bite. I don't care. I'm sitting there enjoying
nature.
Yeah, looking around, talking to whoever I'm with, and because that's what's important, the conversation, the quality time. You're not going to remember 10 years from now how many fish you caught that day, but you may remember a conversation you had or how that person made you feel or how you made them feel, and that's what's important.
You make a good point. I would take it further and say that in everything we do, we should, especially when we're doing it with someone else, we should think about how is this impacting the person across from me or next to me or the group of people that are around me, whether that's your immediate family or the person across from you in the boat or a coworker, because it just goes back to the old saying, people will not remember what you said, but they will remember how they made you feel. And I remember when I was a brand new actor on that set, you made me feel welcome as an experienced extra. It was like maybe your fifth or sixth gig.
Yeah.
And
that was so fun.
I was like, okay, where do I go? Why is this lady putting makeup on me? I'm just going to be a little extra in this commercial.
Yeah.
But
it was fun. Yeah, we had some good times between takes. It was real fun.
Yeah. I'm curious. Leading up to 2020, did the acting thing die out? Did it continue? Did you pursue? Did that kind of kill your hobby of doing this extra work, or did it grow during that time? What did that look like for you?
No, it basically killed it because so much of that stuff shut down. Because so many folks that I know that were extras, and then some folks I don't personally know, but some famous folks were not willing to take the shot and they were so strict. If you're coming on this set, you have to have had your shots and boosters and show proof. And so I'm like, well, I guess I'm not going to do that anymore, at least for a while. And so that faded out in my life. But I could have kept going if I wanted to, I guess, but there would have been some compromise there I wasn't willing to take. But I enjoyed it while it happened. I've even, because I'll still get an email every once in a while asking if I want to, send in a headshot or come for like an audition or hey, just be here tomorrow at 1:00. We need 3 people for this kind of look and whatever, but I've not had the desire to do that lately.
Yeah. Some things are just for a season.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, I don't know what I was going through then that made me want to just jump into that. But like we said before, I think I've always enjoyed just pretending.
Yeah.
And that was kind of my time to be able to do that. And,
it was your version of a midlife crisis, perhaps.
Yeah, I think so.
Where you get to step away from life as you know it.
Yeah.
And go be a doctor one day, and be a teacher one day, and be a basketball coach the next day. And
that's right. Yeah. Or an FBI agent one day.
You were an FBI agent?
Yeah, on the first, The Assassin with Ben Affleck. I was on the first one. I think they've got a second one out now, but I was on the first one. But just small little parts. You have to be quick to see me. When the scene comes up.
If I search you on IMDb, will your name come up and with like your roles?
I doubt it.
Or do you have to reach a certain level?
No, you have to reach a certain level and actually get credits and stuff, and to be listed. So yeah.
After that Doctor commercial I did in 2016, I looked for my name for months and months, and I never found it. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, we're not going to see it.
Yeah, you got to get.
Well, we can still find those photos online.
Yeah. I think I might have some in my phone somewhere.
Yeah, I've got one of, and I'm not sure if it's you laying on the
MRI machine.
Operating? No, you're on an operating table, or somebody is.
Purple blanket.
Yeah, and I'm standing there in my surgical garb, getting ready to work on you.
Yeah, you're treating me as the patient, and you're the doctor.
But then we also had one where you were getting ready to go in like a CT scan or something. Yeah,
I remember. Yeah,
those were. I just remember us laughing a lot, but I don't remember what we were laughing about.
It doesn't matter. You don't remember what you said. You just remember how they made you feel.
Yeah, exactly. I remember how it made me feel, but I can't remember what we talked about.
Yeah.
But I just know it was great times.
Yeah, it was. Good. I'm sure it wasn't anywhere near the same as hanging out with James Franco and Robert Duvall, but
yeah, well, James Franco's a pretty cool cat, but that time I got spent with Robert Duvall was awesome. Yeah, that was just one day for like an hour, but it
was a whole hour.
It was close to an hour.
Wow.
Like I said, I didn't have a phone, didn't have a watch because we were playing folks in the 30s, but it was fun. I mean, he invited me. I'm like, you sure I can sit? He said, yeah, if anybody says anything, I'll tell them I invited you to sit in here with me. They're not going to get on to me. I said, okay.
Yeah.
But he was a down-to-earth guy. Great guy.
Yeah. What else about, how was 2020 for you? What else, I think you had mentioned that there was some, I know it impacted the whole world,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
How did it impact you?
Well, had a couple close friends that died from COVID. One in particular was on the security team at our church. Real close friend. Seen him every Sunday and sometimes during the week if we'd have training or something. So he come down with COVID. He was close to my age now. Pretty healthy guy. But went in and obviously no family was able to come see him. I think he was in the hospital for 25 days, pretty much alone, besides having the nurses come in and check on him and do whatever it was they did. And then he passed away alone as well. And, and that's just one case. Another case of a client of mine, I was getting ready to do some work for them. She went in the hospital, and in about 10 days, she passed away. I still ended up doing the work for the husband, but she didn't even get to enjoy what I did for her at their house. And sad situation. It was sad, and I know those were a lot of uncertainties back then, but I think they knew more about it than they. Well, let's just say it this way. I think they knew that mask didn't do much difference. I think they probably knew this vaccine's a shot in the dark. But there was so much money changing hands, and I hate to say it, but it's pure demonic. And I'm not putting blame on any one person or group of people because it was, I think it was orchestrated from the beginning. And I think it's been proven that it come out of Wuhan, China. I think that's how you say that word. And that it was a man-made strand designed for like biological weapon. And I hate to say it, but I've talked to a lot of folks, and I wonder if that was just not necessarily a dry run, because it wasn't dry by no means, but was that just a lead up to what may come in the future at some point? Because I know there's a lot of demonic activity going on in this world, and if we knew half of what's going on, we'd be ready to take up arms.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully some of us would be ready. A lot of folks are just going to sit back and go about their daily life and not pay attention until it affects them directly, and then it's too late,
Yeah, it makes you think, especially when it comes to the political battle between the right to bear arms and having that taken away. And really, that comes down to two camps.
Yep.
And when you're on one side, it's easy to argue against the other side. But you have to think, as someone who believes in the Second Amendment right, and I know you share that same belief, how can someone think that taking away guns from law-abiding citizens would reduce the amount of violence perpetrated by those who are accessing the guns illegally? And I know I'm bringing it back to guns, but it's really about violence in general.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be a realization that evil people will always
Have access
and be looking to and be motivated to commit evil, regardless of what the law says. And the states that have the tightest legislation on gun control, California, New York, as an example, have some of in the cities around the country as well. Chicago, I believe, is one of them. Detroit. These places have so much gun violence because you're stripping law-abiding people. You're stripping their ability to help support a society that runs itself as far as treating your neighbor the way it should be treated. If you know that the house you're breaking into at 1 a.m. is going to have somebody with a shotgun, you might not be breaking in the house, or you might be more hesitant. But you have these states and these cities where there's a strong assumption they don't have a gun. Or even outside the U.S. in places like Canada and in Europe. I have a friend from the UK. He had mentioned that no one owns guns. Knife violence is big there.
Look at the direction they're going too, and they're already halfway down the drain.
I'm not saying it should be mandatory to own a gun, but the people that want to, for sport and then also for self-defense, that right shouldn't be taken from them.
Absolutely not.
And maintaining it helps preserve society and keep people safe. As with the example of the pastor in the Texas shooting who could have died, plus
who knows how many more.
Countless other members of that congregation. And instead, someone who was lawfully carrying a weapon eliminated the threat.
Yeah. A lot of times when extreme violence happens, it takes extreme violence to stop it. It's not going to just stop until he's ready to stop or she's ready to stop. So, but if it's met with equal or superior force, it will stop.
And save lives in the process.
And save lives.
Innocent lives.
That's right. And back to your point on some of the folks that are, and we're talking, political folks here, politicians that are all on the, let's take away guns, it'll save lives. I think very few of them are actually ignorant to the fact that you will only make the criminal stronger if you do that. I think it's maybe a power grab kind of thing. They feel possibly threatened because the common folks have weapons, and a lot of politicians are not on board with us common folks. They're totally out there with some of their way they think. But I totally think they know what they're doing. It's not. Some of them are totally ignorant to it. They just don't know. But then there are others that will ride that train, but they know all along what they're doing is basically taking the right of you and I to defend ourselves, and it's not going to stop any gun violence. And I saw something a while back how the United States is like I don't even know. I guess we're number one in gun violence in the world. But if you take out Los Angeles, Chicago, Baltimore, D.C., New York, I don't know, name another big city. Detroit. Then we all of a sudden drop down to, I don't remember, it was in the 80-something or maybe even 100th place in gun violence. And every one of those places I just named have some of the most strict gun laws in the country.
For law-abiding citizens.
And with that being said, I think a lot of it's a cultural thing as well. If I grow up in a home where the only thing modeled for me is selling drugs or being violent or robbing, then I'm just going to progress into that too, more than likely. And as the population grows, so is your violence going to grow. So unfortunately, culture has a play in it as well, in that gun violence. It's a culture of violence, period. A few years ago when they had a lot of the riots and stuff, I know a lot of that I think was initiated by Antifa, which, as you know, is now labeled a domestic terrorist organization. But a lot of it was initiated, and maybe the flames were fanned by them. But where you've seen these cities burning down, Minneapolis, places like that, they're big blue cities. And is it the morals, maybe? Because why would I want to go down the street and burn down a family-owned business that I may even shop in sometimes, have no beef with the guy that owns that, unless I'm just morally not there, So a lot of it's culture, morals.
Yeah.
We need Jesus. We all need Jesus.
Yes, we do. Jeff, thanks for coming on.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed it.
I enjoyed our conversation, and I learned a lot.
Oh, well, good.
Yeah. Thanks for being here. Thanks for doing this.
Well, you're welcome.
Yeah.
It was my pleasure.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
We had some catching up to do, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. Hey, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you can be notified every week when we launch new episodes. I'll see you then.